Hello, welcome to this tutorial for ARMA 3 Alpha, where I'll show you how to make a briefing. So basically how to give the player intel and how to assign tasks to him. So I'm just going to keep it very simple. So basically it's a player and an enemy, and then the task is to kill the enemy. And then perhaps another task as well, like blow up the radar or whatever. And unlike the previous games, you don't have to use scripting at all for briefings. Anyways, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is create the player. So switch to units, and then double click, and then change the site to blue 4, and any rifleman will do, any unit will do, and then control player, and set the azimuth to 0, and hit OK. So he faces north. And then we're going to create the enemy that we want to kill. So double click over here, change the site to up 4, and make sure the azimuth is 0 as well, because we don't want him to look at the player when we start the mission, so that we get killed instantly. Okay, that's perfect. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to create a diary record that tells the player what the mission is about. So to do that, switch to modules, and then double click somewhere, preferably close to the player, and then change the category to Intel and the module to create diary record. And then you can enter a subject or just leave it empty, and it will just use briefing. And you can type in your own title or select a preset. In this case, we're just going to select the mission preset, and then we can type like kill the enemy unit and then blow up the radar at air station Mike 26 period. Okay. And then we have to tell this module who it's creating the diary record for, and the way you do that is synchronization. So switch to the synchronize tool, and then drag from the module to the player. So now this module knows that it's creating a diary record for that unit right here. Next, we are going to create the task that tells the player to kill the enemy, and to do that, switch back to modules, and then double click somewhere, again preferably close to the player, and change the module type to create task. And under task ID, we basically just have to enter any unique ID for this task. In this case, since the task is to kill the enemy, we're just going to type kill the enemy all in one word. I prefer not using spaces in the task ID. So basically I just capitalize the first letter of each new word, and then in the title just type kill the enemy, and this is what will appear in the briefing, as well as when you get a hint at the top that says like new task assigned or task succeeded. Yeah, the description can be anything. This just tells the player what exactly to do. The unit ahead is an enemy, kill him. And the marker is just a way to tell the player where it is. So you can just type the name of a marker here, but we're not going to do that, so just hit OK. And as you can see, the module automatically groups to the previous module, and we don't want that, so switch to groups, and then ungroup the module by dragging to nothing. And there we go. And again, just like the diary record, we have to tell this module who it's creating the task for. So go to synchronize, and then drag from the module to the player. So now the module knows that it's creating a task for that player. Let's just move it a bit, just for organization. There we go. Maybe move it a bit closer, like so. Okay, so far so good. Now if we start the mission, the player will see the task if he goes into the briefing. So basically if he hits M to go into the map. However, it will not be automatically assigned to him, so he will have to manually go into the task, select the task, and then click set as current task. But we want it to be assigned when the mission starts. So to do that, we go back into modules and click somewhere, double click, sorry, and then change the module type to set task state, and then change the state to assigned and hit OK. And again ungroup it, so go to groups and drag to nothing. There we go. And then we need to tell the setTaskState module what task it is setting the state of. And to do this, we use synchronization. So switch to synchronize, and then drag from the setTaskState to the createTask module. So now the setTaskState module knows what task it is setting the state for. And again, let's move it just for organization purposes. There we go. Okay. So next we will set the task to succeeded once the enemy has been killed. So let's go back into modules and then double click somewhere and set task state, and then set the state to succeeded and hit OK. And again ungroup it, so go to groups and drag to nothing. And then we have to tell the module again which task it is setting the state for. So switch to synchronize, and then drag from the module to the createTask module, and perhaps move these a bit around like so. Okay, so the problem right now with this is that just like this setTaskState module, this setTaskState module will set the tasks to succeeded as soon as the mission starts, and we don't want that. We want it to first set the state of the task when the enemy has been killed. And the way we do that is first create a trigger that will activate when the enemy has died. So switch to triggers and then double click and hit OK. And then we want to group the trigger to this unit. So go to groups and then drag from the trigger to the unit. So now the trigger will basically activate once this unit gets inside the trigger radius. That's not exactly what we want. We want the trigger to activate when the unit leaves the radius. So basically he'll leave when he gets outside or when he dies. So double click the trigger and then change the activation type right here to not present, and then change the activation to any group member. The reason for that is that if you decide to put more units in this group, actually let's just do that just as an example. So switch to units and then just copy him. So select him by clicking and then Control C and Control V and Control V, and then go to groups and group them to the unit up here like so. And we go back into the trigger. So basically now when any group member is not present, and you may think that you have to choose whole group, but you don't. You have to choose any group member. If you choose whole group, then as soon as one member has been killed, it'll trigger, and that's not what we want. Basically the way you have to read it is if whole group is not present, so if one has been killed off, then the whole group is not present, and then it will trigger. So we have to choose any group member and hit OK. And then change the radius to something huge, so that if the enemies decide to run off, the trigger won't actually activate when they get outside here. So change the radius of the trigger, so double click and change it to like 15 kilometers, just so we're sure that they'll never be able to get outside. There we go. Okay, so next what we have to do is synchronize this module to the trigger. So drag from the module, or actually the trigger to the module, doesn't really matter. Just drag a line between them. So now the setTaskState knows that it's setting the state for this task, and that it should first do so when this trigger has been activated. So now if we go into the game, let's just test that. So okay, I'll have to be fast, I guess, and Fraps is making it really laggy, so let me just see if I can get a bit closer. Crap. Oh, that worked. So there we go, task accomplished, kill the enemy. So that's basically how you do it. Just for good measure, let's create another task. And we could create the other task when this group has been killed, but let's just create the task so that it appears when the mission starts. So switch to modules, and then double click somewhere, switch to create task, and again any ID. In this case we will have the player blow up the radar. So switch the task ID, set the task ID to destroy radar, and the title to destroy the radar, and then the description, just anything, destroy the radar at a station Mike 26. Again, you could put a marker, but we're not going to, because it should be pretty obvious to the player where the radar is. Hit OK, and then again ungroup it. So select groups and drag to nothing. And then go to synchronize and synchronize it to the player so that the create task module knows who is assigning the task for. And unlike this one over here, we don't want it to be assigned immediately because you can only have one assigned, and if we had set task state to assign on this one as well, they would fight to assign it first. So anyways, once the AI sub here has been killed, then we want to assign this to the player, so he doesn't have to do that manually. So switch to modules and then double click somewhere up here, and then change the type to set task state assigned, and hit OK, and again ungroup it. So go to groups and drag to nothing, and then go to synchronize, because again we have to tell the set task state module which task it's setting the state for. So drag to the second task we created down here, and now just like this one, just having it like this will set the task to assigned immediately when we start the mission. We don't want that, so just like the set task state here, we're going to synchronize it to the trigger. So just synchronize between the trigger and the new module like this. So now the set task state module will first set the task once the enemy has been killed. So far so good. And next we want, once the radar has been blown up, we want to set that task to succeeded. So let's create a module, double click somewhere, select modules and double click somewhere, and then set task state to succeeded, and succeeded, and hit OK, and again ungroup it. So go to groups and drag to nothing, and then just like all the other modules, we have to synchronize it to the task that it's going to set the state of. Maybe move it a bit so the lines don't intersect like that, just so it's easier to see those two lines. And just like all the other times, this task state module will set the state the moment we enter the mission, and we don't want that. We want it to happen when the radar blows up. So just like with the enemy group, we're going to create a trigger. So go to triggers and double click somewhere, and a radius of 25 is probably enough, and then hit OK, and then just make sure the entire radar is covered like this, and then group it. So go to groups and then group the radar and the trigger. Let's just see if we can find the radar. There we go. There we go. Okay. Maybe move the trigger just a bit, like so. So now the trigger will trigger when, the trigger will activate when the radar is inside the trigger, and we don't want that because it's already inside the trigger. So double click the trigger and change present to not present. So now when the static object, in this case the radar, is not present, then this trigger activates, and hit OK. And unlike the enemy group, we don't have to use an insane radius because it's unlikely that the radar is gonna go anywhere other than up. So anyways, now we just need to synchronize this set task state module to that trigger. So go to synchronize and then synchronize the set task state to the trigger. So now that task state will first activate when the trigger has been activated, and the trigger will first activate when the building has been blown up. Okay, so we need some explosives, so let's just add a few more units to the player's group. So go to units and then double click behind the player and switch the side to blue 4 and change the unit to explosive specialist and hit OK, and again double click somewhere and hit OK. And just to prevent our own guys from shooting these immediately when we get in, let's just make them hold fire immediately. And the easiest way to do that without using scripting is just select the player, then go to waypoints, and then just double click right in front of the player, make a move waypoint, and set the combat mode to never fire and hit OK. And then just move it a bit closer so that the waypoint activates the moment we get in. There we go. Okay, so far so good. Let's see how this works. So hit enter.
Contact rifleman.
Right. So let me just
Target acquired. 2. Attack that rifleman. 3. Engage that man. Weapons free. Target eliminated. Scratch 1. Hostile down.
Okay, so the first task completed, and the current task has now been set to destroy the radar. So far so good. Sorry, I just had to press all the F keys because there's a bug in the game that causes you to be unable to do anything. Okay, anyways, let's
2. Move up. Roger.
get
3.
to the
Move
radar
up.
and
Roger.
place
Wilco.
some explosives. And 2, put a charge.
2. Set the charge. Ready. 3. Set the charge. Standing by.
Take some
Copy.
cover.
Oscar Mike. Two, move right. 3, move right. Watch that target. Stand up. Relax.
Okay, so let's blow it up.
Oscar Mike. Ready. Copy. Standing by.
And there we go. So both tasks worked, and that was basically it. There we go. So just for good measure, let's create one last task that is not created until the radar and the people here have been killed. Let's create a new module. So go to modules and then double click somewhere and set the type to create task, and again enter a unique ID. In this case, exfiltrate station, and title exfiltrate station Mike 26. Get the hell out of there. And hit OK, and again ungroup it, so groups and drag to nothing. Let's just move it a bit closer. It becomes easy to synchronize that way. Go to synchronize and synchronize the create task module to the player. So again, that it knows which unit the task is for. There we go. There we go. Sorry. At the moment, this task will be created the moment we get into the mission. We don't want that. We want this task to be created first when both the enemy group has been destroyed and the radar has been destroyed. So to do that, all we have to do is go to synchronize and then synchronize the create task module to the trigger of the radar and the trigger of the enemy group. So now it won't be created until both of these have been activated. And then we also want to assign this to the player automatically, so switch to modules, double click, change the type to set task state, and assigned, and OK, and ungroup, so go to groups, drag to nothing, and then synchronize it to the create task module so it knows which task it is setting the state of. And just like the create task module, we're going to synchronize it to both triggers so that it doesn't assign the state until or assign the task until both triggers have been activated. Okay, so far so good. So now we just have to complete this task. So the task was to just leave the base. So basically, once a player gets outside this station, the task should complete. So to do that, let's create a trigger, and then double click somewhere and change the axis A to 50 is probably too much. 25, 50 is probably okay. Change the type to rectangle, and hit not present, and hit OK. Okay, that's way too small. So let's just change these until it fits the entire base, camp or a station or whatever. Or 50 should probably be 75 or 100. And hold shift while you drag it to rotate it, or simply double click and change the azimuth. And this is pretty okay. This is alright. Of course, the player will have to run all the way down here to leave because the trigger is that big. But we don't have any polygon triggers, so this will be okay for now. And then we have to synchronize it, group it to the player so the trigger knows which unit it's activating for. There we go. So now when a player gets outside this area, this trigger, then this task up here will complete. So let's create the set task state for succeeding. So go to modules, double click somewhere, set task state to succeeded, OK. Ungroup it, so drag to nothing with the group tool, and then synchronize it to the create task right there, so it knows which task it's setting the state for. And then we want to set it. Then we wanted to set the state once this trigger down here has been activated. So synchronize them, and there we go. Now the other problem is that if the player walks outside this trigger without completing the two other tasks, then this module will try to set the state of the task created by this task module right here, but the task hasn't been created until these two have been completed. So that'll make the task state try to set the state of a non-existing task. So to prevent that, let's just quickly use a single line of scripting. Double click this trigger up here and then give it a name. In this case, just call it trigger1. Okay. And the other one for the group, double click, set the name to trigger2 and hit OK. So now we've given the triggers names, and then double click the last trigger down here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change the condition. So other than just this is just the trigger itself. So this trigger will trigger when this trigger has triggered, basically, to put it simple. But we want some more conditions, so we're going to type space and then and with 2 ampersands like this, and then we are going to type trigger activated in one word, and then space, and then the name of the first trigger, so trigger1, and then space, and then another and, so 2 ampersands, and then space, and then trigger activated, and then space, and trigger2. So now this trigger will not activate until the conditions of this trigger has been met, and the first trigger has been activated, and the second trigger has been activated. And hit OK. So there we go. And now for some final effects. Let's end the mission properly. So double click the trigger again, and then on the activation, let's type play. playMusic, and then a square bracket, left square bracket, and then quotes, double quotes, and then type track 03 underscore on the road, and then double quotes, and then comma, and then space. Well, actually, don't need the space, but just it looks better. And then 23.5, and a right square bracket, and semicolon, and then space, and I'll explain this in a moment. And then square bracket, and then quotes, and 1. Doesn't matter what you type here. This is basically, actually, I'll explain that in a moment. Comma, true, and then square bracket, and then space, call, space, BIS, f_fnc_end mission. Okay, so let me just explain this. The first one is a command to play music, and these are the parameters. The first is the music to play. In this case, this is the ID of an existing track in the game, and this second parameter is the time or the position within the music at which to play it. So this is 23.5 seconds in it, and then semicolon ends this statement. So that was one command, and the next command right here is this is a function written by Bohemia that makes this cool mission succeeded at the end of the mission. And the end one, the first parameter, is the ID of a debriefing text in the briefing.html file that we have not created and that we're not going to create, but we just have to type something. So if you want, you can just type blah, whatever, or no ending. Doesn't matter because we haven't created the ending, so the text in the debriefing screen will just be empty. And just set this to true. If you set it to false, the screen will just fade out, and we don't want that. We want the cool ending. So that's all there is to it. And well, let's just save. So kill enemies and blow up our radar. A rat, what the fuck? There we go. Okay, and well, I hope you were able to follow this. Of course, the scripting was just for some coolness. You don't need all this other than the condition right here. Then again, in your case, if you're making a mission, you may not have a situation where you want the player to leave the area once you have completed 2 other objectives. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were able to follow it, and thank you for watching. So bye.
Contact rifleman. Hold fire. Stay crouched. 2. Engage that man. 3. Fire at that soldier. Target in sight. Weapons free. Target down. Target eliminated. He's down. Understood. 2. Move up. Roger. 3. Move up. Copy. Stand up. Ready. 3. Set the charge. Ready. Ready. 2. Set the charge. Ready. Fall back. Copy. Understood. Copy. Ready. Understood. Standing by. Understood. Wait. Ready. Return to formation. Roger, Wilco. Form file. Form line. At ease.